Supreme Rice. Since the 1930s, supporting Louisiana farmers and communities throughout Louisiana. To find out more, go to supremerice.com. Live at lunch.
You are looking live.
Live at lunch. Live at lunch with Ott and Hanny on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
What the hell's going on out here?
Now, here's Jimmy Ott and Charles Hannegriff.
Yeah, for some reason or another, you sound a little taller on radio.
Is it live?
And live here from the DraftKings Sportsbook, the beautiful DraftKings Sportsbook at downtown Bally's Casino in the Atrium. And it's our last show before we start football Sundays here on the 13th of September. We'll be back here every other week getting you ready for the football season. Not a better screen in the land over here in South Louisiana or the Gulf Coast to capture all of the excitement. NFL Sunday Ticket will have all the games on over here every week, and we'll kick it off with Football Sunday, our first show of Football Sunday of the season. That will be 10 a.m. to noon over here from the DraftKings Sportsbook at Bally's Casino. So lots going on. Of course, we have Randy McKay at the bottom of the hour. He'll preview the Lions with us. We'll talk about them. We talked about them a little bit yesterday with Mike Delicano. Noon will be Scott Rabelais. 12:15 it'll be Wes Reynolds with his golf picks. 2 for 2 and outright winners the last 2 weeks for Rabelais. So that's good. Scheffler and, the winner without Scheffler and Sunjay M. And then last week with oh, gosh, I'm always talking about drawing a blank here. A boy, Andy Wyndham Clark, with the winner, anywhere from 25 to 30 to 1 last week. And then we'll have a consensus golf picks at 11:30, brought to you by Dana Brown at the law offices of O.C. Brown. Of course, we'll talk a lot about what's going on with the SEC. They put out a statement. The Big Ten says no NFL players can sign with us. Then the SEC, reactively puts out another one with their policy for NFL players and G League players, NBA players. Doesn't mention European players. So that is going on. We got an update with that. But first of all, we wrap up last night, a beautiful ceremony at the Maravich Assembly Center last night. First, start off with the women's practice facility with lifelong friend, investment banker from Miami that he was with so long, and Mr. Berger, to start with his grandson, Ezra Pate, the former Lisa Pate son, Lisa Bertman Pate, her son. And I know EJ he's right at Ethan's age and went to Bertman's camp, Maneri's camp, and the LSU baseball camp, and interacted with Ezra, and he was beautiful last night. Then moved over to the PMAC, where Bill Frankus was the master of ceremonies. Jay Johnson was outstanding. Ben McDonald, his animated self. Herb Vincent, who worked with the administration with him for so much. Verge Osbury talking about, of course, the RV story, and Lori Bertman hitting it out the park. Beautiful, beautiful. Lots of tears, lots of laughs. I love the mannerisms. Charlie is with us. Now he's on vacation this week, but we had to bring him in for a little combo seg here to it was a beautiful ceremony. I got to tell you, Charlie, I was kind of proud to be an alum. We're kind of getting beat up a little bit in the national media as of late. But, man, it was so well done, so tastefully done, and just such an outpouring for so many ex-players. Seemed to be every one of them were there last night. We could go on and on, but as we've given tribute to Skip, but we had to put one final thought on this today, and it was a great ceremony that I had a chance to sit right next to yet.
Yeah, I agree, Jimmy, and it was great to see so many of the extras, some I hadn't seen in a long time. I got to talk to Trey Hodges and Ray Wright and Michael Hollander and, Rick Green, who was on the show with us last week. And a lot of the guys that live out of the market that we haven't seen in a long time, it was great to visit with so many of them. And, all the speakers I thought were fantastic, but maybe the one surprise of the night, just when you think you've understood the entire radius of Bertman's influence, Laurie, his daughter, in her eulogy said that Billie Jean King called her. Now,
Yes.
I have no idea where Billie Jean King and Skip Bertman may have crossed paths. I would imagine in Miami, but this is one of the legendary tennis players of all time, arguably the most famous female athlete in the world in the '70s. Um, how did they connect? That Billie Jean King in her '80s thought to find Laurie Bertman's phone number and call her to express her condolences. So that one caught me by surprise. Like, wow, just when you thought you knew how many people Skip influenced, you get that call.
Billie Jean she's been honored by the USCA and the U.S. Open. She's a big a difference maker in women's sports. We know about the Bobby Riggs deal, the whole deal back in the Astrodome back in the day, but just yeah, and that made an impression on me. Charlie, I love Lori. Two things: the mannerisms, whether it's Ezra doing his thing, whether it's Lori, it's just so Jay Johnson, Ben McDonald, of course, he's very animated, but the best Lori Bertman. So the first one was when she says, "Hey, athletics, all in." And she looks at the roster and puts her hands up. This is my roster, and that. But then she says, of course, and she says, "Well, we all know his favorite daughter." And he looks at this sister. She looks at this sister. She looks at that sister. She looks at herself. She goes, "Doug Thompson."
Yeah,
how great was that?
Funny moment. Yeah, it was a really funny moment. And Doug, of course, good friend of ours, and has been so, so entrenched in his program even since he left, and was so close with Skip. So it was a really funny, heart-touching moment.
You left. I had a chance to talk with Dougie a little bit more. I said, "Look, Dougie, I see him working out at the fitness center at your club. I see him. He was pissed off at me for interviewing Ryan Mills and bumping him the '98 College World Series at the team hotel. And went back and forth and this, and the whole bit. But I said, look, man, all kidding aside, I said, we got to get you on. And it took him a week to kind of gather his emotions and talk. I said, but you are the quintessential Bertman player. I mean, you are, and I said, for lack of better terms, you freaking had guts. I mean, you got more out of you, just the measurables, and he shared the story with us in the South Alabama game. We had to pitch, and finally he was passed out in the locker room, thinking that he might have to come back out again. But so many players, and Charlie, it hit me emotionally too, because it just hit home with me, about recently going through this and all the great showing of my dad's ex-players and that relationship. And I just wonder where guys are hopping from program to program in whatever sports in college athletics. I wonder if that's compromised a little bit. I just don't know. But it's to have that and them talk about impacting them as men, not just winning ball games, was really cool.
I agree, and Pete Bush, I thought, was terrific. He gave a eulogy in the basketball arena prior to the main ceremony, and I thought Pete was terrific in articulating just that. And man, when you look at the total number of those guys that went on to become successful businessmen, became fathers and husbands, and the success stories just pile on top of each other. And Pete told a great story about Skip talking to his nephew who wanted to be a baseball player so very badly, and he said Skip told him, take care of your grades, because he said it was pretty obvious that I didn't have the talent to play baseball at a high level. So every time he'd tell me, take care of your grades. Even at that age, he could tell. And Jimmy, he had so many guys go into professional baseball and do well there, but how many more didn't, maybe play baseball more than a couple of years after they left LSU, went on to become great successes in any number of other fields?
He paved a path for them to become successful, whatever, in this community. Whether it's teaching lessons in baseball, or running baseball camps, or running baseball academies, or leagues, or teams, or whatever it is, to whatever investments, financial investors, whatever. So many of doesn't it seem like so many more of the baseball players are involved in the Baton Rouge community post playing career? And Pete, there's no doubt he's really good at the impressions and the mannerisms and I liked how he was bouncing things back and forth with OJ as well. And OJ with that, with the start in the national championship game against Wichita State. No question about that. So I thought a very, very tasteful, very classy, and very entertaining to a degree send-off for Skip. It was just as inappropriately so.
Yeah, and Jimmy, just to kind of wrap up on it, one of the most influential things to me, Bertman in the 90s, which that powerhouse program gave, since you brought it up earlier, hey, LSU's getting beat up in the national media here a little bit, maybe worried about it. Skip in the 90s was the one shining light for Louisiana sports. The football team wasn't very good for most of that decade. The basketball team struggled, and the Saints were not very good for most of that decade. But doggone it, when LSU baseball came around, it gave Louisiana something to, kind of stick their chest out and be proud of. And I'm happy that Skip got all of the accolades that he deserved while he was still alive. They put his name on the field and all those other things. I think that was really, really appropriate that it finished this way.
I agree, and I think it was sort of presented a little bit last night. I like yours as an LSU, so maybe the most impactful sports figure in the history of LSU because he did it as an administrator as well as a coach. But I'm with you, Charlie. I'm talking about Louisiana because I'm in New Orleans at the time. And listen, man, when they're playing USC and that Brett Boone, those classic games, in the late '80s, man, everybody in New Orleans was glued to it. And they pounced on it as well. And still to this day, some loyal LSU baseball fans were born that we see on a regular basis in Baton Rouge. We see on a regular basis that make the trip to Omaha. So really, really good stuff. Charlie, first of all, I want to start off with the vote. There's been some reports that the SEC had a unanimous vote to implement this policy as far as, with the NFL players. Anybody's been in an NFL roster, an NBA roster, a G League roster. Didn't mention European, mentioned basketball and a WNBA roster, 16-0. I was at the service last night, and I was told that no, it was 15-1, and that one was obviously the president at LSU and Mr. Roos. So that first of all, but I don't know where we go from here. These players, I was clarified. It's not necessarily a Kiffin thing. It's not necessarily an LSU thing. It's a players that are fighting the NCAA for their eligibility. We're talking about the football players. We're talking about Luis, the basketball player as well. That's kind of a little bit on pause because the urgency, because the start of the season is not as close. But will they play? Will they not? I mean, the Indiana players get to play. We'll talk about to Wes Reynolds a little bit later because they never participated in the camp because they were injured. I mean, the whole thing. But we talked about this 5 for 5. Okay, that's great. I'm with you. 5 for 5. I mean, we were watching Max Johnson in 7th year start for Georgia Southern this year. But 5 for 5. But why do you exclude the class of 2022? Give them their 5 for 5. That was obviously vulnerable for lawsuits, and it's been attacked there. But the whole statement by the SEC, not policy, then the Big Ten puts out a football policy, then the SEC reactively puts out a football, basketball, men and women's policy. Your thoughts?
I think that it really depends on how long they want to play chicken with the league, with these football players. I understand you want to make every attempt to make your football team better. You're 10 days to the opener, and maybe your focus should be somewhere else at this point. I understand the class 22's beef. I would argue that they changed the rule after that. When you signed in 22, you were guaranteed 4 years. They changed the rule after you finished. But that being said, if I was the NCAA, I probably would have just said for this very finite group of players from the class of 22, just go ahead and throw them in and let's get this over with and let's move on. I think the basketball thing is a lot more in-depth, and we don't have time in this segment. But for the football players, let them continue their fight. But I think if I was LSU, I think I would move on and, move towards the opener with the guys I got on campus, and let's go play.
What's the repercussions, you think, of bucking SEC policy?
I think that the SEC will probably announce maybe today or tomorrow penalties similar to what the Big Ten is suggesting, which is a lengthy suspension for the coach that elects to play these players. The Big Ten did half a season. I would expect something similar to that, and significant financial penalties as well. They didn't mention forfeiting games, but wouldn't be surprised if they did that too. The courts, of course, are going to buck that, saying you can't punish these guys for, following a court order. So, again, how long do you want to play chicken between the courts and the SEC over a backup tight end and a rotational defensive tackle? We're not talking about bringing Joe Burrow back here. So I think at one point, very soon, I would say, okay, listen, we're going to move on.
Even more for teams like in Week 0 with Virginia. The class of 2022 guys, Kazim Moore and Jacob Holmes, a couple of defensive linemen, they're practicing. They're not on the depth chart. They don't know, right? As of now, they don't think they have eligibility to play Saturday at home against NC State. And, of course, Chandler Morris was denied his preliminary injunction, and so he did not get his 7th year of eligibility. And a guy like Johnson did get his 7th year of eligibility. So enjoy the beach without the sand. I don't understand. How about Paul Skeens last night, Charlie?
It was a banner night for LSU pitchers in the bigs, right? Skeens, Jump, and Nola all had really good outings last night. I think they
Jump was great. Jump was great last night, and they misplayed two pop-ups on him. And the night before, Gosman goes his farthest stint without giving up a run for the Cubbies in their win at Arizona. So funny how that all happens. Charlie, we appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, Jimmy, thanks.
All right, Max will be with us shortly over here. We're live here at the DraftKings Sportsbook, downtown Baton Rouge at the Bally's Casino, getting ready for football season. So we've got Week 0 action, 8 games. We'll have them all on over here in our beautiful screen that we have. Of course, we've got all of the MLB action. We've got all of the and even on replays. We're watching a Bears-Bengals preseason replay right now. We're watching Miami Ole Miss replay, Georgia Alabama SEC championship game replay, and a lot of other scores. MLB Network getting ready for more day action. A rubber game getaway day in Detroit. Tampa Bay is at Detroit this afternoon. But if you haven't been here, you got to check it out. They're erecting the stage over here as well. We're going to have live entertainment during the fall right here at the Sportsbook as well. So a lot of things going on over here at the brand new Bally's Casino, downtown Baton Rouge. Live at lunch, live at Bally's Casino, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Live at lunch from Bally's Casino and Sportsbook on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
All right, live over here again at the Bally's Casino and DraftKings Sportsbook. Don't forget their great menu as well. We got U.S. Open. A lot of that is starting this Sunday for the main draw, and some whispers. We already saw that Alcaraz, who missed the last 2 tournaments, he was in. He's in, but now they're saying there's maybe some rumblings that he might withdraw. We'll see about that over in New York. Sinner has already withdrawn, so they claim it's some injury. He has not played a tournament since Wimbledon, but there is some video of him hitting and practicing. He's a guy that missed some time for some violation of test results, so we'll see about that. Charlie and I talked about Gage Jump. He was outstanding last night. Got a win against the Minnesota Twins at home. The A's have really been struggling since they've gotten littered with injuries throughout their lineup. Probably the 4 best hitters are all out right now, but he does get the win last night, and they had 2 horribly played balls a pop-up in the infield that just nobody got. There were 5 infielders, the pitcher and 4 infielders right there, and nobody gets it. And then a kind of a Texas leaguer down the right field line that they misplayed as well, got a glove on it and did not field that one. But all eyes were on Paul Skeens at Petco Park in downtown San Diego last night. And he threw 6 scoreless innings, 3 hits, 0 walks. 0 walks. That is much better than what he had. He had walked 4 batters the last 3 out of 4 starts. So the last 4 starts were 4, 1, 4, and 4. So 13 walks in the last 3 starts. He had not pitched or not credited for the pitching past the 5th inning in his last 5 starts. But it was the last time he had gone this deep and not given up a run was back on May. Let me get it right here. It was on May the 12th against the Colorado Rockies. He's pitched 8 scoreless innings at PNC in Pittsburgh. 17 starts in between. 17 starts since he had gone scoreless of shutout ball. But the lack of walks is a thing that I'm really, averaging, over 3 walks an appearance, 3.25 walks an appearance. That is just not him. His fastest pitch last night was a sinker that went 98.6 miles an hour. He was at 97.6, was his fastest pitch last time out against the Detroit Tigers. His four-seam fastball reached 98 as well. His spin rate was slightly up as well. Speaking of the Pirates, they've won for the second time. Keep in mind the San Diego Padres had the best record in baseball since the All-Star break, but it was Mason Miller, the best closer in the game for the Padres, gave up a 2-out solo home run in the top of the 9th. That was the final score, 1-0. Keep in mind they won in 12, so the Padres have been on a little bit of a hitting slump all of a sudden the last 2 nights. They went the 10th, 11th, and 12th without scoring on Monday night with the ghost runner, the Manfred man, starting at second base. So Skeens continued to frustrate Padres hitters in that one last night. So some kinds of positive signs for the former LSU ace and the number one overall pick, last year's Cy Young Award winner. We talked about Gausman. We didn't mention this yesterday, but he was outstanding for the Cubs on Monday night. The Cubbies, who fell behind 2-0 to Seattle, scored 19 straight. They won that last night. They won 7-0 on Monday night behind Gausman, and then blew a 4-0 lead, including a 2-out, 2-run walk-off homer in the bottom of the 9th last night. They had scored 30 straight runs, did the Cubbies, until last night. But Gausman, it was his longest outing without giving up a run for the season this year as well. He went 7 innings of 3-hit ball. He only walked 1 and struck out 6 for the Cubbies in that win. Boy, horrible beat last night. So what do you do last night? 3-1. The number 9 hitter is up. They pinch hit for him. Runners at second, so a base hit ties it. You get a 1-run lead. He just gave up a long fly ball to right field that off the bat looked like the hitter got it. You got a righty versus righty matchup at 3-1. You don't want to groove one, but also Corbin Carroll is on deck. So walking is not the end of the world there, but then you don't want to pitch to Carroll. He grew the fastball. The pinch hitter for the Diamondbacks put it over the fence for a walk-off home run last night for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Max, what's going on, buddy?
Oh, how's it going? It's interesting hearing you on the way in talk about LSU voted against the SEC measure. Is that right?
Yes, some very good authority, 15-1. Some people are reporting that it was unanimous, but so
that changes some things to me. I think there's been a lot of criticism, certainly launched at LSU, and I think a lot of people defending.
Oh, it is a field day with Childers and Newhouse this morning.
No doubt.
Even the female producer, even her Get Yourself Together entry was Kim Mulkey. So I mean, it's from all angles they're getting it left and right.
But don't you think that if they voted against this measure by the SEC, that they would maybe deserve some criticism a little bit more than maybe those who have defended and said, look, we're doing what everyone else is doing? If they're putting themselves out there as the only ones who are voting against this measure, then they are doing things differently than the rest of the college football landscape is, right? So, I mean, that opens you up. Maybe that's why they haven't admitted to it publicly. Maybe that's why it leaked out that it was 16-0, and maybe we'll find out eventually that it was 15-1. But, I mean, if you're voting against this when the whole world is voting for it, this measure to block these professionals, then you are doing it differently.
Well, I don't really care about the criticism. I mean, I care about if it affects your wins and losses. I affect if it's going to affect repercussions. I mean, the league can vote to. I mean, they can punish you. I mean, they can hurt your ability to compete. In the future. I mean, this just in. I mean, 6 months ago. I mean, everybody doesn't like Kiffin. Nobody likes Wade. So we're immune to that.
That doesn't.
And then once we start playing, then it's the games count. The games trump everything. So all the ancillary stuff,
whether you're popular or not, who cares? But I do think it's important to note. I mean, if they are, I think some of the criticism would be fair if they are actually the only ones that seem to be fighting this. That would strike some difference between them and the rest of the country, where you'll hear Lane Kiffin on Pat McAfee, went on yesterday and defended himself and said, look, some other teams were going to sign him. It was just going to be about who first signed one of these pros, and it just so happened to be us because we won our recruiting battle. We won our recruiting pitch, and that's fair. But if you're the only ones that actually are going to fight this now, then that does make you a little bit different. So that is one takeaway that I have from that. But ultimately, I do hope that we, college football is resolved in all this, and I hope that the SEC and the conferences end up winning this battle, but we'll see. There's a lot to go.
From as far as evaluating the commissioner's office, I thought it was a little weak and reactive. I mean, you come out with your statement. Then the Big Ten comes out with their policy. And then you come out with your policy 8 hours later. I mean, come on, man! They're beating you on the field right now, and they're beating you in the league office.
Well, do you want to be the first?
I mean, just act. Be proactive. Be a leader. Be strong.
They should have done this before any of these teams even tried this, no doubt. But maybe they didn't want to be seen as picking a fight with one of their member schools. That does make it a little more complicated when LSU's already signing essentially pros.
Don't forget our friends at Legacy Title. Chad Reynolds at Legacy Title for all of your real estate closings. 296-0060, full service title company servicing all of South Louisiana. Ashley Donald, Adrian Galata, Michael Platt, Mariana Haynes, Natalie and Bradford Smith. Buying, building, refinancing. Nobody chooses but you. Choose Chad Reynolds at Legacy Title. 296-0060.
Live at lunch from Bally's Casino and Sportsbook on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Uh-oh, they let the big dog out.
Boom! Out of nowhere.
It's time for the big dog, Randy McKay, with his best picks.
Oh, man, football is just around the corner. Thank goodness we get to see some action. Randy, what's happening, my man?
Yeah, everything's going well, and I'm starting to work my way back, but I won't make it to Vegas in time to see you guys. I'll be there the week after, unfortunately.
Yeah, tomorrow and Friday we'll be live from Las Vegas at the Circa Contest sign-up weekend, the Radio Row. So looking forward to that. Chris Massero and others will be with us, and Paul Stone will be with us also. Randy, we touched on the Lions a little bit yesterday, but let's first start off with the Lions and, of course, that memorable 2023 NFC Championship, or it was played in January of 24, where some ultra-aggressive game management by Campbell may have cost them game. Boy, they were so much the best that day, but San Francisco was a very good team and kept them hanging around. Of course, like when Reynolds dropped the ball, too, it was a little bit to the side of him, but he's an NFL receiver. He's got to make that catch to keep one of those drives going. I mean, they look so good for such a long period, but they lose that. Then they lose to Washington at home. Jaden Daniels put on a show. They couldn't stop them at all. And then they finished last in the NFC North. Is this window gone for this Lions club of being able to compete for a Super Bowl championship?
Yeah, it's kind of looking that way, mainly for one big reason, as you're talking about there. What started their decline? They started getting injured in the offensive line, They lost their center retiring, and now nobody makes anything of this. They lost their offensive line coach. I don't have his name available, along with the 2 assistants that made their offense really decline last year. So they might be getting some help here with their first-round draft pick and Blake Miller, but he's a right tackle, which was kind of a weird move, I thought. For them, now they got to move Penny Sewell, who was a dominating right tackle, over to left tackle, thinking he's going to be fine, and their offensive center is already hurt to start the season. So, that once dominating offense, and you got a quarterback that's a statue back there that can't move around, all of a sudden becomes a detriment, and then you got a defense that's, decent. I got them, their front 7, like number 9, but then you got their defensive backs and backfield. Their safeties are okay, but their D-backs, of course they drafted one of those Alabama players that have to get in trouble. It seems like Alabama U is Khan University, and then you get another guy that's causing trouble, and then you're thinning the defensive backfield. So a little bit of questions for me with this team.
All right, the schedule, and we talk about first of all, to win their win total is 10.5 wins. The division to win the NFC North, which is highly competitive. I would have to think you might have them as your number 1 division, maybe the NFC West, NFC North, number 1 divisions, AFC West, maybe. Well, you let me know. Division plus 170 to win. To make it to the playoffs, now they're a big favorite here, minus 220 to go to the Super Bowl, plus 930 to win the Super Bowl, 19-1. Those are all the odds where we are today at the DraftKings Sportsbook here at the Downtown Bally's Casino. But they do flip, and one thing that they had, and even our buddy Derek Stevens talked about it going into the 24 season, man, that schedule was much tougher in 23 and 24 and 25. This year it's a little bit different. NFC West, you'd much rather play Arizona than Seattle or the Rams, along with a couple others like Miami instead of, they're playing the AFC East, Tennessee instead of Jacksonville, Houston, or Indianapolis. Your thoughts on the schedule?
Yeah, that's one thing that, I have them and the Vikings right there to win this division. So I'm not totally down on this team, and that's mainly the reason why, because the schedule of theirs, they got the last place schedule. It looks like it's, pretty decent, but it's kind of a wait and see till you get to this, a week 6 bye here. For me, there is one play against spot with this team that I'll talk about here in a little bit. But, the schedule, is really beneficial for them. Can they get off to a good start here? It looks like, they're favoring, 3 out of the 5 games pretty big. So they should have at least 3 wins going into that bye, if not 4. They got a tough game against your guys' Saints that first week, and I'd really like the Saints if they're a little bit. We'll see how their health goes in that first week. That could be a play on the Saints for me, but the one play against spot is way late in the season. They got a sandwich spot between Minnesota and Chicago. They got New York Giants,
yes,
which should be a better, younger team at home there. So I see the New York Giants being as an underdog a pretty good play in that situation. But as far as any other bets, as far as the season, I think the 10.5. So they're right around 10 games. Maybe peak 11. So that's pretty good. If you want to take a flyer thinking they're going to get off to a bad start here on getting that plus money, no playoffs, that'd be the way I'd maybe even look with this team.
That's what I was thinking. Because the NFC has so many candidates that could make it to the playoffs this year. There's no doubt about that in the division, but. Yeah, their offensive line, those 2 years, they were just so good. And also, speaking of the offensive line, they're flipping, their star, Penei Sewell. We've talked about it a lot. We've talked about it pre-draft when both he and Jamar Chase were coming out. We said, man, you got to protect Joe Burrow before you worry about giving him. And we love Chase, and Chase might be a future Hall of Famer. Chase has been incredible. But Sewell, and Burrow's been, the best ability is availability, and that's really hurt and affected the Bengals along this day. But talk about the move from right tackle to left tackle for Sewell.
Yeah, I mean that's got to be a troubling spot. He's still I'm sure he's 26, 27 years old. You guys might have that in front of you, but he's still very athletic and probably can do that. And he's probably practiced that some and maybe even played a couple games as far as that goes. But it's going to be a tough move for this team, and more worried about their center and their two guards here protecting for Goff there, because he's not a mobile quarterback, and when he gets pressured, we've seen in the Super Bowl and we've seen other times in playoffs where if he's getting that pressure up the middle, he's a sitting duck out there, and then come the bad throws and interceptions as well.
He's a Libra. He'll be 26 in early October, so as far as that's concerned. A lot of people have given a lot of consideration, because now that Montgomery, and it was that Gibbs-Montgomery 1-2 punch during this run for the Lions where they've won so many games. Montgomery's gone now, and Isaiah Pacheco is a little banged up. I think they looked at a guy yesterday that they were thinking about bringing up or bringing in as well. Did they sign somebody yesterday or working him out? But is Gibbs a guy that can handle the workload of increased touches?
Yeah, I believe he can. He's matured into the probably the best back in the whole NFL. I think now, him or the guy in Atlanta there for sure. And I think he can handle the more workload. But then that's can be troublesome too. That 1-2 punch was pretty deadly for them, and having Montgomery's that inside runner taking those tougher hits was a big advantage for Gibbs. With his outside skill, and then getting him in the pass game with them short passes. So having to do all that in the pass protection might be a lot of wear for him.
Kareem Hunt was brought in. He's visiting the Lions, so they're working him out to give him an evaluation. Of course, he has bounced around a lot. Where did you have your top three divisions? Where did you have the NFC North? Where they're ranked?
Yeah, they're right there with the NFC West. You got all these good teams, and then, of course, the NFC West, the only one you have that's real bad is Arizona, but I think their offense is going to probably win some games for them and can be real dangerous. So, but then you got, probably maybe even three playoff teams, or definitely with the Rams, Seattle, and San Francisco. So I still got that as number one division.
You mentioned the Saints opener, and it's a tough assignment for the Saints, and it's a big number there. There's no doubt, especially for the first week of the season. Everybody is healthy. The numbers are really, really tight. It's one of the biggest. I'm trying to see real quick if there's a bigger one out there. I think there was maybe at Jacksonville, Cleveland at Jacksonville. I'm not sure if that's a full touchdown or not. But why? Is it just because of the big number, where numbers are a lot tighter in the opening week? Or why did you kind of identify this spot as maybe the Saints getting some value with that +7?
Yeah, and then you got the Chargers are 10.5 too that first week. So you got three survivor candidates here, if whichever one you want to pull on, probably. So
that's right, at home against the Cardinals. Yeah.
I mean, you're getting a team. I think on the upgrade there is the Saints getting over a touchdown, and if they come into that pretty healthy. I like that spot there in the first game situation where I don't think their defense is going to get run over by this Detroit team. They're used to playing in the dome, used to that atmosphere. So that could be a good spot there for Kellen Moore and Strzok and company to come in there and give Detroit a really good close game.
The division, how do you think this thing is going to fall out? I mean, Johnson looks like he's going to be pretty good at Chicago, but my goodness, they won so many close games. That usually, is something that some experienced handicappers will look to maybe even out, in the following year. They're going to have a tougher schedule as well. We talk about Detroit. They're not quite what they used to be, but they're certainly explosive. And Jordan Love and the Packers, I mean, could you have two worse losses than the regular season and the end of the season against the Chicago Bears and after they go on the road and beat Philadelphia? So, your thoughts on the division? Is it a divisional outcome that you're willing to play?
Yeah, we gave out Minnesota last week, at plus $5, and I think there's still value for them to win the division there. And I'm gonna take them and Detroit in second here, and then Chicago. The reason I don't like Chicago and Green Bay this year is their poorest defense. Chicago has already had injuries there, and I don't that shootout brand football. I'm not a big fan of it to start with. And if you don't have a defense that can stop the other team, they can dictate everything. And same with Green Bay till they get Parsons back. Their defense is really weak, and their offensive line is really weak, too, at Green Bay. So I'm not a big fan of them this year either. So
okay.
I think it's Minnesota and Detroit right there at the top.
Minnesota, I'm not a Kyler Murray fan, but he has to give them better level of quarterback play. Maybe a change of scenery will heighten his preparation and his professionalism. He just drives me crazy as he is, but he needs a little humility after being the number 1 overall pick. And we'll have to see O'Connell if he can get more out of him than what we saw at Arizona. And so, but at plus $5, that's a tempting one to say the least. Follow Randy on Twitter at RR30. Now we're gonna miss you this weekend, man, but we'll be talking to you throughout the rest of the NFL season. We've got real football this weekend.
Yeah, pretty exciting. Got the North Dakota State. They're real excited up here about that game versus Jacksonville State. And
right.
People are real down on North Dakota State, and they're still going to have the best offensive and defensive lines in that new conference. So I see them still having a big year. Unfortunately, their schedule's a little tough, but the people that are down on them are going to be surprised if their quarterback and receivers come through. I don't know that much about their new quarterback, and it's a wait and see.
You like them Saturday?
Yeah, I think they usually club these games pretty good in the dome. So Jacksonville State's came there one other time, and they beat them pretty badly. So I think that could happen again. But like I said before, they're transitioning in a new quarterback and some offense, but like I said, their offensive line will be really strong. Many pro players have come out of there as well on the offensive line. So, they know how to recruit and get good kids in there, and their defensive line is pretty strong as well.
Randy, we appreciate it, brother. We'll talk to you next week. Thank you, man.
All right, sounds good, everybody, and good luck out there.
Don't forget our friends at Go Chevrolet in LaPlace, Go Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Plaquemine, Go Chevrolet West in Plaquemine, and Go Ford in Waveland. The Go Automobile Dealership family, my buddies Lee Carney and Nick Richard. A great selection of vehicles at a price that you can afford. A full selection of new vehicles and also reliable pre-owned vehicles that come with an extension of the factory warranty. So professional finance team, competitive financing options or lease plans for you as well. The concierge service department, super convenient. You heard me talk about just how convenient it is. And everything from oil change to filter replacements to powertrain, drivetrain repairs. Mention my name, Jimmy Ott, for VIP pricing at the Go Automobile Dealership family in South Louisiana and Mississippi. And I don't just talk about the vehicles from Go Chevrolet. I drive a Chevy Tahoe that I go from Go Chevrolet in LaPlace. Go Chevrolet, Go Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, Go Chevrolet West, and Go Ford. Back to wrap up hour number 1 here from Bally's Casino, the DraftKings Sportsbook, live at lunch, live at Bally's on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Live at lunch from Bally's Casino and Sportsbook on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Max, any thoughts on the Lions and the rest of the NFC North? I know you were eyeing that schedule, which has been a shift for the Lions to get teams like the Titans and the Cardinals instead of some of the stronger teams in those divisions.
Yeah, well, I really wanted to fade the Lions, honestly, going in, because I worry that we saw the loss of Ben Johnson last year really affect them. Ben Johnson is a play caller.
Well, they lost both coordinators, yeah.
Obviously a big deal. Glenn was a big deal, but specifically the offense that felt like it took a step back last year, and Dan Campbell calling the plays, and it just wasn't quite the same. So I wanted to fade this team. The win total is high, but it's high for a reason because of that schedule, as you mentioned, being much softer than the rest of the division. So it's a tough one for me. I'd still want to fade them. Maybe the way to play them is that miss the playoffs market, because there is I want a juicier price. If I'm going to fade them, I want a juicier price I don't want to go out on a 50-50 side of things just because their schedule might keep them afloat.
We're doing shows down the Mississippi Gulf Coast, and, they had those junkets from Detroit. First of all, we saw when the Lions a couple of years played in the Dome, there was they had more fans than the Saints. Obviously, their team was a lot better than the Saints that year, but they also, I remember a group of them sitting right behind us and talking about, yeah, man, I thought we were going to lose him next year. No way we're going to keep him this year. Talking about Johnson. Mm-hmm. So they had respect. You never know how those guys, but, man, he seems like he's having a real good effect on Caleb Williams. Because I just didn't know. He's running around and, all these crazy – he was a rookie. He was being pressured, but still – he's had a nice. He showed a lot of progress.
Don't forget, McVay traded Goff because he didn't quite trust him enough. You had a Ben Johnson, an offensive mastermind, working with him. Now you don't anymore. You've got you missed that piece with the quarterback.
Goff was plenty good as long as your boy was there. So we'll see. Their offensive line, nobody will argue that. They're just not as good. Top of the hour. We'll be back after this. We're live at the DraftKings Sportsbook, live at Bally's, live at lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Enjoying the finer things in life is his forte. Let's bring in Scott Rabelais from The Advocate.
Scotty, good to see you last night at the Skip Burtman celebration of life. How you doing today? Not a slow day covering the LSU athletic department, huh?
Yeah, man, there's never anything to write about, talk about. No, it was good seeing you, Jimmy. I wish we'd seen a few more fans there, but a lot of baseball players and great. Kathy Miles was there. I don't know if you saw her.
Yes.
But it was good. It was a good turnout in that regard, and a great event.
I didn't mention it yet, but kind of a Ben, as he it's a lot of tears and a lot of laughs, but he says and then Skip the team of the decade in 5 national championships, and he put up a big hand, 5, and he said, that's a 5 we can all get behind. So,
the guys who do SEC shorts just put out their first SEC shorts for this season. It's on YouTube, and they got in 2 or 3 Jaden Daniels singers. So yeah, the gift that keeps on giving, for sure.
Yeah, yes, indeed. Where you want to start with this? First of all, I think it was being reported some places that the vote for this new policy that the SEC put out was reported it was unanimous. I was told last night by a pretty good source it's not the case. It's 15-1. And so, LSU is at 1 and President Roos. And so and we don't know, the player. I also talked to some folks that said that, this is the players. It's not LSU fighting their eligibility, but these are the individual players. They talked about the NCAA might be in violation of the restraining order, the whole shebang. But your thoughts on all of this that's going on with not just the football team now, Lane Kiffin, but also with Will Wade and the basketball team?
Yeah, I mean, a lot to cover. I'll try to be brief. First of all, the SEC puts out these votes. They always say it's 16-0. I mean, Texas A&M didn't want Texas to join the league, but it was 16-0 when they voted to let them in Oklahoma in. So that wouldn't surprise me. I saw Dr. Roos was there last night. He and Virg Osbury came back from Birmingham, and we're going back for the second half of the meetings today. And he gave me a no comment. I had to ask him if he wanted to say anything about the vote, and obviously, not surprisingly, he declined. Look, I'm like a lot of people. I think these class of 22 fifth-year guys who did go to the NFL are, victimized by the timing and an arbitrary decision, frankly, by the NCAA on this 5-for-5 ruling, and should get a chance to play. I don't think R.J. Lewis should play. He gave up college eligibility to turn pro, and that's different. I think Cokie Riley. We have a story up on the Advocate.com. Cokie Riley talked to Daquan Wright, and he said he probably would, if he'd known he could have. He probably would have stayed for a fifth year, either at Ole Miss or gone somewhere else. And it's easy to say that now, but it's I think that is the case for a lot of these guys, and I think it's unfair. But this is not the end of the litigiousness just because the SEC and the Big Ten found this ruling. These attorneys and these players are not going to just throw up their hands and say, "Oh well, we tried." And these coaches, there's going to be more legal action and stuff, and more. Good thing the season's about to start because as always with these things, you're risking alienating a lot of fans. I had someone tell me last night, I'm just sick of college sports. I get it. I get it with all this stuff, but this is not the end of the road.
I'm sick of the college off season. I'm not sick of college sports. So, right. I mean, it's just, didn't we used to cover recruiting after the season was over? Now recruiting is going into the season. I mean, this is, the eligibility. I mean, there are a couple of defensive linemen for Virginia who are practicing with the team that don't know if they're going to be eligible for Saturday's game against NC State. I mean, it's just it's the way it is. Now, the players will argue, and this comes from very good authority as well, is that they said they would not have, as an undrafted free agent, tried to make an NFL roster if they had known there was an option for a fifth year.
Right. Yeah, I think that's true. I don't know if it's true for everybody, but I think it's true. I mean, some of these guys were signed as free agents, and obviously this is the only shot for them to do. Clearly, now you can make money in college football. That also sounds strange to say, but this is the new reality. Much more than you can make is maybe being on a taxi squad or being a practice player who bounces around. So it's a different reality, and I think these guys. I don't think it would be a long-term thing, Jimmy. I don't think that. These players going to the NFL and coming back would be a long-term thing. But I think it would be for this year and this group of players that we're talking about. I think, but I think they've left themselves open. The SEC and the Big Ten. You're still allowing players from European leagues to play. Can attorneys go and say these are professionals? These are professionals. You're drawing lines of distinction that don't exist. LSU just got the 7-3. Center from Israel, who was playing in Spain in a professional league, but it would seem like he can play, So, and that's fine. It's a different case from R.J. Lewis, but I just think he's drawing distinctions that don't add up. Maybe it will, but I mean, one of these attorneys said, they're running things like a cartel, and somebody's going to sue them for that.
If I got a kid who could really hoop. He's about 14. We move into Europe, we turn pro, make as much money there, and get all the eligibility and come and play in the States in college basketball as well. So, at some point, and then in the SEC with their policy that they released, they said, it's football, it's basketball, men and women, but it's not the Olympic sports that we see on a regular basis. The tennis players. They're eligible to participate during the season in professional tournaments. They keep the money if they make it, and they still participate in the NCAA tournament at the end. By the way, both the men and women are expected to be really good again for LSU. So just add to, but then we got back in Oxford. The FBI is combing through them for some bugs. I mean, but is this just good stuff for the SEC and all of this build up and sort of this nonsense, or is it just all foolishness?
Well, Jimmy, there's one school of thought that the old saying, "There's no such thing as bad publicity," right? If you're out there, and I mean the whole thing with almost having them check the football facility, have the FBI check the football facility for bugs. I think in that way, I think it's silly. It adds to the whole another log on the fire of this bonfire, this LSU Ole Miss rivalry that has sprung up in a way that we don't remember. I mean, this is the way it was in the late 50s and early 60s. When LSU and Ole Miss were both at the top of the college game for a number of years. So I think it's just fine. I think I'd be shocked if they have any real reason to think that Lane Kiffin tried to bug the facility. If he did, and they find something, then okay, I'll write something about it differently and say that was a bad thing to do. But remember when he said he sold his house in Oxford to Pete Golding? And so I can watch him on Ring. I could watch him on Ring doorbell. Maybe they're like, hey, maybe we did check this place. There was he coached. Real quick aside, obviously Lane coached briefly for the Oakland Raiders and was fired by Al Davis. And Al Davis was accused by a visiting coach of putting a bug in the locker room in the light fixture. And Al Davis was told about that, and he laughed and goes, it wasn't in the light bulb.
We remember his short stint in Knoxville in the Vols girls, and that was controversial, and that was flirting with some violations of NCAA recruiting regulations, and then he was just ahead of his time organizing the Grove Collective and said, no, let's not fight this, let's embrace this and get a plan, and that was it was a part of why he was successful at Ole Miss. Or is this where we went telling people, hey, look, you get the whole package when you bring Lane Kiffin in now? Is this, or are we going to be having this sort of off seasons on a regular basis? Maybe not to this extent, but is this kind of just a sign of things to come?
Yeah, I mean, there'll always be a little something. It's kind of like with Kim Mulkey, right? And we've seen the controversy with her, and then now the people taking sides with Kate Koval, the Ukrainian player leaving the team. Now that they brought in Anna Minieva, the Russian player who is on the team. So did she treat her fairly? People are asking that. There's always going to be something with Lane. It's baked in with him now, Jimmy. He's talked about his past. He mentioned the press conference we had with him recently, the firings and him leaving schools and stuff like that. The Raiders, the USC, Tennessee, Ole Miss, obviously. That's part of his story. And he said, I've learned to embrace my story and try to learn from these experiences. And like I say about people, it's human nature to want to just decide this person is this way. Jimmy Ott is this kind of guy. And Charles Hannegriff is that kind of guy, or Kim Mulkey is like this, and Lane Kiffin is like that, and never give them a chance to grow or show you another side of them that you might go, that's not bad. People just want to put labels on it, and Lane's got a label, and it's just going to stay. But yeah, I'd like to think that once we get past the first LSU Ole Miss game, which obviously is still a ways down the road, that some of the stuff will start to die down, but it never will completely with Lane, though. And
we got some news coming in right now, Scott. I want your thoughts on this, and this is from the SEC. The SEC has finalized penalties for programs that violate its new professional sports eligibility rule per multiple reports. Violations will result in A, head coach suspended for 50% of the season, B, a fine equal to 50% of the sport's annual operating budget, and C, SEC voting privileges on business matters revoked. Your thoughts?
Well, it's nice that they've came up with some penalties, right? I mean, the Big Ten had penalties, and the SEC at first looked like they might just say, hey, we don't like this. But, yeah, I mean, they put some teeth into it. I still don't think it's going to stop there'll be more lawsuits from these players and that trying to get their one more year of eligibility back. But they've drawn a line in the sand that's, frankly, a little stronger than we usually get out of the SEC. Usually it's just like, well, we're gonna have a committee to study this, and we're gonna think about that, and we're gonna put out a strongly worded letter to the editor or something like that. But obviously, they feel very strongly about this right now. I think it's a little wrong-headed in this respect, but we'll see where this goes from here, because it's not the end. Just because they said it, it's just not the end of it.
Scott, is the golfer of the year on the line this weekend in Atlanta?
Sure, I think so. I mean, and all the stats, the player performance stats are in Scotty Scheffler's favor, but if Wyndham Clark wins the Tour Championship after winning the U.S. Open and winning a couple of other tournaments, he could be the player of the year. If Rory McIlroy wins the FedEx Cup, he could be the player of the year after winning the Masters. Even Cameron Young, maybe, for winning the Players and winning several other tournaments. So, I think it should be. I think, Scotty is still the best player in the world. He has a lot of close calls this year, like 5 second-place finishes. But, if he's got one more big title, then Scotty won, 2. Yeah, he won a playoff event and kind of a regular event in Palm Springs. But, it definitely should. And this is all changing, though, Jimmy. Right? This is another thing that's changing in golf. We're going to see kind of a match play final to the Tour Championship in the future. I hope it's going to be have a little more juice to it, because obviously this has never really captured the sports fans at large. I'll watch golf anytime, but for a lot of people, I don't think they've ever gotten too excited about the FedEx playoffs and the Tour Championship. Maybe this will, coming down the pike in a couple of years, will be better. But yes, I think, but for this year, it's some added interest about who is going to be Player of the Year, because I don't think it should be a foregone conclusion now.
And Scott, you mentioned those changes announced by Brian Rolap, who I thought did really well in his press conference yesterday. But one of the things, we got the official PGA Tour schedule for next year, and it's the last year before they split into the Championship Series and the Challenger Series. It looks like a pretty good draw for the Zurich compared to this year, where they were surrounded by signature events. They've got the CJ Cup afterward, the Valspar. The CJ Cup's normally a pretty good field, but ultimately should be a slightly better field in the last rendition of this current PGA Tour model for the Zurich.
Yeah, that's nice to see. I mean, the Masters 2 weeks before, as is usually the case. They like this spot. The tournament organizers and the Zurich insurance people like this spot when it's during, they bring in people during Jazz Fest and that sort of thing. And it's going to, the Truist Championship is pushed down the road. So that's good. Obviously, we're all waiting to see what happens with the Zurich. We expect it's going to be on I think they're calling it the Challenger Series or Challenger Tour. It's going to be the second tier. And then what happens with the tournament from there, it's still going to be a team event. Is it going to survive it all? We're all waiting to see. But for next year, the Fitzpatrick's coming back to defend their title. It's going to be it should be a good one. Maybe the last of its kind, but we're going to have to see. But yeah, for next year, it looks good.
It's been a fun, eventful offseason, but next week let's talk about the Clemson LSU game.
Jimmy. Let's do that, please.
Scott, thank you, man. We'll talk to you next week.
Take care, guys. Thank you.
Don't forget our friends at United Community Bank, the local way to bank big, with locations from Baton Rouge to Golden Meadow. We've been serving the people of southern Louisiana for over 50 years. At United Community Bank, your business is our business. We support the hardworking folks behind local business, all the way from initial startup loans to ongoing planning and assessments. United Community Bank is here for you. Our great team of bankers: Prentice Wilkes, Heath Meir, Nicole Glover, Hunter Creed, David Campbell, and David Henry. United Community Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender. Live from the DraftKings Sportsbook, the Bally's downtown, live at lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Live at lunch from Bally's Casino and Sportsbook on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. From east, north to south, but we're heading west. It's Wes Reynolds from VSiN.
All right, welcome back over here to Bally's Casino downtown, the DraftKings Sportsbook. Let's hook it up with Wes Reynolds right now. Wes, how you doing, buddy?
I'm well, Jimmy. How are you?
Oh, good job. I hope you bet your picks last week, but this is back-to-back, and it wasn't affected at all. I mean, because you didn't have to split it because he won outright, so it was very good. That's the only risk of playing these markets, without Scheffler, is that you could have a four-way tie for that second-place finish. That wasn't the case, so very well done. You made some of our listeners very happy last week.
Well, good to know, and, trying to get hot at least at the end of the year. I've had better years from an outright perspective, but, getting the last 2 weeks in the playoffs, going to try to go for a 3-for-3 sweep here at the Tour Championship. But Wyndham Clark held up, man. He leaked a little bit of oil, but when he needed to get right, he got right at the right time.
He, I took a little bit of Rory at about in game at about 4-1, but then I took back some Wyndham Clark. Wyndham Clark Rory was a big favorite there for a while. I think I got like plus 250, 275. So more than Lincoln Oil. I mean, that massively. And how many, 8-foot putts did he miss along the way to just kind of open the door? But then that one putt, I think it was 16, Max.
16.
Then it boomed. Then he finished strong.
Yep,
but
birded the last
that kind of got him going to finish strong.
Yeah, everything he made on Saturday, he didn't make on Sunday at all. And I'm like, really? We can't have a 5-shot lead and just kind of put our feet up and get an easy one. But they're never easy, man. You got to fight for all of them.
Yes, indeed. All right, so what are we looking at this week? The tour. First of all, you're going to go to the the ones that include Scheffler or not? What are we looking at? He is a plus 350 favorite for the Tour Championship this weekend.
Yeah, Jimmy, I'm going to stick with the without here. I know after the round he indicated about the hand, foot, and mouth disease and whatever other affliction he may have had. So I don't know if he was on the front end of it or the back end of it, but he talked about how he couldn't really grip the club and ended up finishing T12, which was respectable. But there was at one point, if you looked on that leaderboard on Thursday, where he was dead last in the field. But when I do all the modeling and look at all the stats, look, number one with a bullet here on the charts, I think, when you look at it, and still obviously playing for Player of the Year, certainly Wyndham Clark under consideration for that. And perhaps Cameron Young, even though he may have peaked from his good play earlier in the season. So I think it's probably down to Scheffler or Clark. But I'm going in without Scheffler. Just 3 this week with only a 30-player field. And as embarrassed as I am, and I had a very sheepish, almost shameful grin on the video portion of our Long Shots podcast, I'm going back to Patrick Cantlay, about plus 1325 as of yesterday at DraftKings. And it's not without risk. Like, this has been his worst putting season in about 9 years. He's only 95th on the tour. But if you look at what Cantlay has done here at this course at Eastlake, 2nd, 6th, 7th, and 4th in 4 of the last 5 years. Remember, he won the FedEx Cup here in 2021. And last week in St. Louis, where he was just so great in terms of his ball striking. He was number 1 in fairway proximity, 3rd in ball striking, 4th in approach. Last year, he led the field in those categories where he fell short of Tommy Fleetwood. And Cantlay's been a pretty good player in the playoffs for his career, at least. 3 of the 8 Tour victories have been in the FedEx Cup playoffs, including his last one. It's been so long, Bryson DeChambeau was still on the PGA Tour because that's who he beat in the playoffs at the 2022 BMW. So I have a feeling about Cantlay. He's very widely backed this week, so that concerns me a little bit. But maybe it's time for him to get back in the winner's circle. And then I also played Colin Morikawa, plus about 16-1 in the without market. He was the low 72-hole scorer here 2 years ago in the first year of that renovation that they did at Eastlake. Remember, they used to do the starting stroke. Well, he was the lowest of 72 holes but didn't win the FedEx Cup. Now, of course, they changed it last year where you win the whole shebang. If you just go ahead and win the event, everybody starts even. Number 1 on approach, best iron player in the world this year. And the putting has been actually pretty good, which is usually the weak part of his game, but he's gained on the greens in 6 of his last 7, 9 of his last 12 starts dating back to mid-February. And then we'll close it out with a Georgia Bulldog, a state of Georgia native, Russell Henley, plus 2350 in the without. He was the co-runner-up here with Cantlay last year, plus was 3rd and 4th here in years past. He's actually never been worse than 12th at Eastlake. T12 last week because he had such a bad final round where he only hit 5 of 14 fairways, and this is a guy that's number 1 on tour in driving accuracy. So I think that was probably an aberration. So if you're looking, I guess, buy low, as ridiculous as it sounds in the 30-player field, Russell Henley might be the guy. He could be under the radar this week because all the big guns, of course, are going to get the most attention.
Wes, you said you're playing the without Scheffler markets, might be on the back end of that hand, foot, and mouth injury, surgery, or disease, I guess. But just a question, on Scheffler. Dare I say he doesn't have the best track record by his standards at this golf course? He has a victory to his name, but he was not the lowest player that week. That's when they had the starting strokes model where he started 10 under par and held on for the finish. Just by his standards, looking at where he started some of these tournaments, he's kind of backed up a little bit relative to the field. So would you consider splitting some of your tickets into the with Scheffler markets, or are you just going to play this in the without Schefflers?
Yeah, I did that a little bit, Max, a little bit of a split here. And you're right, he's never been the low 72-hole scorer here, but fourth and third, respectively, here the last 2 years. So it's kind of one of those ones where it's like, eventually he's going to win, because you look at the form line, fourth, third, and then second in 2022, second in 2020. So certainly it's capable here, and I don't think that, like, this is a golf course that doesn't fit his game. In fact, I think it does, because a lot more of it is total driving. Even though it's a 7,400-yard par 70, he certainly can get it out there. He can keep it accurate in the fairway. Just knows how to play positional strategic golf. So I did split it a little bit, to kind of get the full boat here. But I think doing the without is still a good idea, even with the questions around the illness and the injury, as it were. You're right. He could be on the back end of it here. And then it's all of a sudden like, yeah, there he goes. He wins the big one and clinches Player of the Year. So that's probably the way to play that, I think, if you're attacking the outright markets this week.
Second to last year of this current structure of the playoffs. We got more information on the structure of the playoffs, specifically the FedEx Cup or whatever sponsor it'll end up being in the future, going to match play. They'll have one event of stroke play to set a final 32 based on the standings. There will be there will be an individual winner for that tournament, and then they'll set the field of 32 for the playoffs, and then it'll be match play. 2 weeks of match play, the first week being a group play setting to get it down to 16, and then a week of a match play itself down from 16, kind of March Madness style, bracket style. What do you think about the return of match play and it deciding the ultimate champion of the season in the playoffs, considering there's no match play throughout the regular season?
I actually love it, Max. I've been wanting this for a long time to kind of shake it up. It's a lot less confusing, too, than when they did the starting strokes deal. I like it because I think it's going to keep interest with the fans, because it's tough in this part of the calendar when all the majors are done and we're all jonesing for football. And then once football starts, before you know it, the NBA and college basketball starts. And then you have the MLB, the playoffs, pennant races, then the playoffs. And it's just a busy sports calendar, and it's a way to keep people's attention at the end of the summer. I think, if you had a matchup where, like, you had Rory and Scotty matched up like you might in the Ryder Cup, I think people are interested. And I think people like that. It's head-to-head. It's different strategy. So, and plus you can get some underdogs like you can in a March Madness style. Like, you get somebody that's the number 30 seed advance to the Final Four. So I think it makes it intriguing. I like it. I like the fact that they're doing something different. Credit to Brian Rolapp, the new PGA Tour commissioner, comes from the NFL. So, look, he knows how to get interest in sports, and he was the brains, I think, behind the schedule release day, where it's like we have a scheduled date to talk about the schedule in the upcoming season. So he's a guy that knows how to get interest. So I really like this idea, even though I wish it would start next year and not 2 years from now.
It seems like Brian Rolapp's really listening to some of the A1 fans, because a lot of us have been clamoring for the return of match play, maybe to decide this. Jimmy, what do you think? I mean, as a more casual, just general sports fan, the idea of a bracket, it being different than the entire
I think you can do it
season.
over 3 weekends, and the first weekend is for seeding. And even you can have some, but to do like a ton of with those match plays, got to be a little bit too many rounds over the course, but you can stretch them out to where it's less.
Yeah, they're doing the match play in 2 weeks, so it'll be a lot better this time around.
Yeah, I like that. Wes, I got to ask you, though, first, the SEC issues a statement, the Big Ten issues a policy banning, football, NFL players that get on a roster. The SEC then issues a policy for football, men and women's basketball, and now just moments ago, they outlined the penalties for the violators of the new SEC professional sports rule. 50% season suspension for head coaches, 50% of that sport's annual operating budget, and the SEC voting privileges revoked on business matters. Indiana, though, their defensive line, they're good to go, huh? Ready?
Well, they're not officially. They still need an injunction to actually play in the game. but they are practicing with the teams because, kids that weren't drafted, as if they declared for the draft or whatnot. And we'll see. I mean, they're still, looking to get a ruling that lets these guys in. I still think it's a really good defensive line, even if those two are not eligible, that being Kellen Wyatt and Stephen Daly. But, we shall see. I understand, though, that this is really weird when it's like you got a guy that was in NFL training camp, and now he's going to be on a college field coming up here in a couple weeks. So I think, there needs to be some legislation around that. I'm sure John Calipari is very happy about that because he's been beating the drum. It's like, we shouldn't have grown men like 28-year-olds playing college basketball, even though maybe Will Wade disagrees with that based on the latest recruiting at LSU. But, it gets to be the point where it's like, okay,
you're still going to have grown men playing. They're just going to be coming from the European leagues.
Right. So you can't be all Van Wilder here and be in college for like 20 years with this thing. But, yeah, that's the thing now with the European kids. Like, you couldn't pry a good year out with a crowbar years ago. But now with NIL and college basketball, it's like, yeah, sure, I'll come over here and get myself even more exposure for the NBA. So it was common, I think, because people are always going to try to find loopholes, and who's making money, of course, is these player NIL agents right now.
Players are still going to seek legal assistance based on the fact that they said they would have stayed in college for a fifth year and not going to training camp, but that's where it is now. Follow Wes on Twitter at Wes Reynolds 1. Wes, good luck. Let's make it 3 in a row, buddy. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
good job.
Let's do it, man. Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, don't forget our friends at Total Maintenance. Total Maintenance, you want fewer AC breakdowns, lower energy bills, year-round peace of mind. Join the Total Maintenance membership program. Call us up at 480-0007, 480-0007. Regular maintenance keeps your system running efficiently, lower monthly bills, and also identifying problems before they become costly repairs. And if repairs are needed, they're backed by our lifetime warranty. And also your membership plan, especially the elite membership plan, get a $200 signing bonus. They'll go credit when you need replacement. How about half of your monthly bill goes to credit as well? We call them TM bucks at Total Maintenance. Total Maintenance, your total lifesaver. 480-0007. That's 480-0007 and TM-AC.com. Max's Picks and the Consensus when we return, brought to you by Dana Brown at the law offices of O.C. Brown, live from the DraftKings Sportsbook downtown at Bally's Casino, live at lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Wednesday Consensus Golf Picks are brought to you by Dana Brown at the law offices of O.C. Brown.
I'm usually got my headsets off because the level is so much higher when we come back with the intro and the imaging. Is that Dana Brown screaming like that?
Yeah.
Huh? You know what? He is my neighbor, but he lives a little in the back of the neighborhood. I think I heard him when Wyndham Clark finished it off Sunday.
Really?
Yes, indeed. Yes,
good
indeed.
for him.
Yeah, I think he had a little Wyndham Clark. Actually,
the last guy on my card. I was so upset when he got up to a 6-shot lead on Saturday.
I didn't think it was bettable. I did have a nice prop. I did take him head up when Rory head up against him. But Rory, he didn't play well. I mean, it wasn't like he lit it up. And that's what he said after. He said, "Yeah, you should be disappointed you tied with 4 holes to go, three or 4 holes to go. You're in the final group, but I didn't play that well." Kind of.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of weird because Rory played so bad in Memphis, but it's also like he just kind of had to show up. I think he was forced to by the tour because he's not going to reach his minimum number of starts of 15, so he's kind of playing by different rules. So I think they forced his hand there and made him show up, and he was not ready, clearly, but he played a lot better last week in a golf course that fit his game a lot more.
Clark, first birdie was 16.
And then he birdied 17 and 18,
He's
too.
protecting the lead. I get that, but also he missed how many under 10-foot putts?
Yeah, he's made those all week. That new pink putter he's got. I'm interested. I haven't gotten to watch yet the PGA Tour has partnered with NFL Films a little bit and mic'd up these guys a little bit like Hard Knocks does. And they had him mic'd up, so they've got his final round. And he talked about how he struggled to really lock in. It wasn't really pressure that he was feeling. He just wasn't really that focused on that final round early on. People don't really like Wyndham Clark that much. There was a bit of a rules controversy, I guess, on 14 where he does something that a lot of tour pros do, which is pat down the grass with different clubs behind the ball to get a better lie. Unfortunately, it's kind of a...
You don't think Rory got a favorable decision on Sunday?
It's favorable. It's technically correct.
Well, was that Scheffler the week before? It was a big name. I mean,
Scheffler at the Open, where he gets to drop it out of hitting it in the hospitality in a very favorable area. So, Look, there's favorable rules the way the golf is written, especially on tour when they've got hospitality and setups for patrons and stuff like that. I think that's the other good thing we're hearing about this new PGA Tour playoffs in a couple of years. They're going to go to better golf courses, and part of the thing with that is they're going to heavily reduce the amount of people and hospitality on property. So I think you're going to see a more like you would play it type of golf course if you're going to play at some of these Sleepy Hollows or some of these world-renowned golf courses that just haven't hosted tour events before. So that is one optimistic point of perhaps going to a smaller venue where it's not built out for so many fans to be there.
All right, how we see this thing?
Well, I'd mentioned he was the last guy off my card. I work backwards, so I normally have about 8 guys that stand out and work my way down from that. And Wyndham Clark was that last week, and I've got a bit of FOMO this week. I'm going to go back to Wyndham Clark at 18-1. I think he's the PGA Tour Player of the Year right now, unless Scheffler were to win this week. I think it's going to be his. I know Goddard and Fitzpatrick and Cam Young could certainly make a case if they were to win this week. But Wyndham's just playing really good golf right now. And it's interesting, he talked about how when he missed the cut at the Rocket Classic, that was kind of a one-off. He missed the cut at the Open Championship, but the Rocket was out of nowhere, a weak field, and he shows up and doesn't make the weekend. He talks about how he hurt himself at throwing out the first pitch of the Tigers game. So maybe that explains why he has that one-off in his performance. But otherwise, since May, he has been outstanding. 3 wins to his name, including the U.S. Open, a bunch of top 5s. He's been in the mix before. And the important thing that I'm looking at this week, Jimmy, the last 2 weeks, we rarely see this on tour. They have been 2 straight weeks where the fairways are zoysia grass. And I happened to play a zoysia grass golf course last month, and I really got an appreciation and emphasized what I believe on this. Zoysia grass in the fairway, it's like it's on a tee. You really don't even, if you were playing the ball up and you were able to lift it, you wouldn't even touch the ball anyway because it's just basically on a tee. You get more spin. It's just a lot better. So some guys play a lot better on zoysia grass because it's so much different than Bermuda or some of these other grass surfaces they play. So I'm looking at guys who have been hitting the ball very well with their irons the last 2 weeks from the fairway, and he has been exceptional from the fairway. Cantlay's one of those. You heard Wes mention him. But Wyndham's been outstanding in this playoffs, 5th of the St. Jude and won last week. So I think that's going to continue this week. He was finding enough fairways. You really don't want to hit it off the fairways this week because that Bermuda rough can be very thick at East Lake. But the fact that he's going to a similar grass type that he's had success at, the fact that he has played so well in the back half of the season, I'm going to play Wyndham Clark here at 18-1. Sam Burns is 19-1. You heard me. I mentioned Patrick Cantlay because his iron play has been so good. I was between him or Burns. They're at similar prices, but I'm going to go with Burns just because we think about who won this tournament last year without starting strokes, the top 30 all at the same level, and Tommy Fleetwood won, a guy who had never won on the PGA Tour, but it just felt like he was due. It felt like everyone was very happy for him because it felt like time was there for him, and it seems like that's the way it could go for Sam Burns this week. Not as accurate as I'd like off the tee considering what's required at East Lake, but I mentioned, from the fairways, the zoysia fairways, he has been very good the last 2 weeks, really the last 2 months with his iron play, and he's back on Bermuda. Bermuda Burns is back on Bermuda, the best putter in this field on Bermuda greens. That's the surface you'll get on the green surfaces this week, so I'm just going to play Sam Burns. It feels like he's due, and if there's anybody like Tommy Fleetwood last year that's due one, he hasn't won in over 3 years at this point, I think Sam Burns could be that at 19-1. And finally, another player who has been absolutely striking the ball very, very well with his iron play, but also after really struggling with his driver earlier in the year, he almost won back at the the Phoenix Open where Chris Goddard outlasted him. That was Hideki Matsuyama, and the driver is what got him in trouble. That's what lost him that tournament back when we were watching the Super Bowl, getting ready for that in February. He did win the Hero World Challenge in December, but ultimately has not won really in this calendar year, and he's starting to play a whole lot better. He's putting together performances, top 10 finishes in his last 4 of 5 starts. He kind of struggled a little bit last week, but it was the putter in the short game. Short game's always an issue with Hideki, but if he can get the putter just going a little bit, he's done pretty well here in the past. 2018 was his best performance with the driver at this golf course, and he finished in 4th place. So the fact that he's coming in, hitting a lot of fairways right now, and his iron play can always get scorching hot, if he can just find something with the flat stick, I like Hideki Matsuyama. I really like him at 32-1. So Clark at 18-1, Burns at 19-1, Hideki Matsuyama at 32-1. That's no consensus play, but I will say I was considering playing Cantlay at a top 10 finish this week at about even odds. So if you want to consider a pseudo sort of consensus, we can both agree that Patrick Cantlay is a good play this week.
All right. So you heard Max with Wyndham Clark, Sam Burns, Hideki Matsuyama, Wes with Patrick Cantlay. Cantlay he looked good again. I mean, it's been a long time since we signed him. Remember, it was Scheffler's first win the day that the Rams beat Cincinnati and Joe Burrow in the Super Bowl. They went to a playoff in the Phoenix Open. But it drives me crazy. We have to watch him more when he's in contention because he takes forever and the regrip and the restance and everything else. Sure. But he looked like his old self.
And it's now 4 years since he's won a golf tournament. 4 years since he won the BMW Championship. That's another playoff. He's done well in playoff events before. He won the FedEx Cup. He won the Tour Championship back in 2021. So we've seen him get hot for the playoff run before. He's played well at this golf course. But, it's been a little while since we've seen him, like you said.
All right, don't forget our friends at the law offices of O.C. Brown, Dana Brown at the law offices of O.C. Brown, your law firm for a lifetime. Both Charlie and I have used Dana's specialized team of attorneys over and over for different reasons at different stages of our lives. Go to the website and you get a little video of Dana Brown. He's talking to you. I love pulling it up. Just to, when I miss him a little bit, I'll just pull him up. If he hadn't come by the house in the neighborhood, just pull up ocbrown.com and I get to see my man. So he's again dedicated to protecting your rights, fighting for the justice you deserve, and that's the thing. You don't know. You're not an attorney. We don't know if we're entitled to more or if our rights are being infringed upon. That's why you take advantage of that initial free consultation. Call us up at 343-1111 or go to the website. You get a main block. You click it on to get the free consultation, and you can schedule it right there. That way we'll evaluate your case and give you some honest feedback on just how aggressive you should be. 343-1111 and ocbrown.com. Dana Brown at the law offices of O.C. Brown. We'll come back and wrap things up here live from the DraftKings Sportsbook. It is at the Bally's Casino, live at lunch on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Live at lunch from Bally's Casino and Sportsbook on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Wednesday, that means matinee baseball in Major League Baseball, and again, an outstanding showing. The best outing in 18 starts for Paul Skeens. 6 scoreless, only 3 hits, 4 or 5 strikeouts, but 0 walks. 0 walks. Keep in mind, he walked 13 in his previous 4 starts. His velo was slightly up. His spin rate was slightly up. So a couple of pitches, right in that 98 and change. So continues to look a little bit better. And we talked about the last one out, sort of that blue pit against Detroit. He was but he was still walking, guys. He walked, 4 guys and 4 in a third last night. So in Detroit, rubber game between the first place Tampa Bay Rays and the Detroit Tigers. And, after Detroit, let Skubal go, traded Skubal to the Dodgers. They had that made a little run, and it has been ugly since they did win last night against the Rays, but the Rays are up 2-0 over Melton, who's been a really good pitcher for the Tigers so far. So, with these new penalties, that have been outlined by Sankey in the SEC, Max. I don't know how you continue to be aggressive. There's nothing stopping on R.J. Lewis, the two players from Ole Miss, the football players. There's nothing stopping them for still pursuing their stuff individually, which I was told this is not as LSU versus a court deal, but it's their individual players. None of these players have been listed on LSU's roster, but I just think the chances, this has been clearly outlined. It's time to move on, huh?
Well, it's interesting because Matt Moscona is reporting there's mutual interest with another player that would be an eligible Utah cornerback who had signed with Denver. So we'll see if they keep going down this path. What's interesting is this fight is a little bit harder, as I understand it, as the NCAA has done this before, where the legal challenge is harder because you're not actually suspending the players as a result of this. You're suspending the coaches and you're punishing the institutions. So it makes it a little bit harder, from my understanding in law, to fight this because you're not actually – it's harder to prove damages to the player because the player is not necessarily being punished directly. It's more indirectly. So that might be something to follow in this as well when it comes to legal proceedings, but I'll leave that to lawyers or whatever.
My head hurts.
I do.
I mean, I got law. I mean, I got court fatigue, man. I mean,
I wish we could move on from this. I wish this was the sign to say, all right, it's all broken. Let's let this go a little bit. But it seems like, the players are right. If they want to keep fighting this in law, that's fine. But the teams have to plan accordingly as if it's not
I do
gonna
know
happen.
that. It is their argument is that they would have, if they knew they could get an injunction, they would have stayed in college.
I hear that argument, Jimmy. But somebody with this rule change is going to be slighted. Somebody's got it. Look, life isn't fair, and sometimes somebody's got to take
but
one for
this
the
thing
team.
was this 5 for 5 makes a lot of sense.
Sure.
Minus this 2022 class, that doesn't.
I agree. They screwed this up, but maybe intentionally. Maybe intentionally. Maybe they wanted Congress to step in, and this is a way they could break it, just like the Dodgers getting Tarek Skubal, right?
Well, I will say this. Kiffin doing this with the players coming from there, and it is. This was going to get to a point where it forced Sankey to show some leadership. Tomorrow we'll be at Circa, their Radio Row. Paul Stone, Chris Massaro, Max, and me will be live from Las Vegas tomorrow and Friday. For Jordan back in studio, this has been Live at Lunch, live from Bally's Casino downtown.